Welcome back, everyone, to Time of the Round, episode 11. I'm Brendan Patrick, joined by calling champion Hayden Dale. Or are we getting back to calling you that, or do you have a better title for
You
yourself?
can call me whatever you like.
I was even thinking about it. I was like, oh, wait, I don't call him calling champion in Time of the Round. I was just, like already in the zone.
You can call me future pre-release 1-3 Hayden if you like.
Yeah, am I going to call you Falcon of the East? I heard that's a hot one.
I don't even know what that
means. Oh, yeah. I think that, like, Taylor, I was listening to
on the
Attack Action podcast. He wants to call himself the Falcon of the West. So that's funny.
Yep. Self-given nicknames are great, like Mr. Classic.
Yeah, Mr. Classic. Anyway, Hayden, obviously some exciting news these past few days. We had the spoiler season start. We had our spoiler go up as well. Why don't you just quickly jump into it? Talk to me about some of the spoilers that have stood out to you so far.
I mean, I think I'm going to get a message from my boss soon and say, it feels like your productivity's been quite low the last few days. No, I mean, the last few days have been crazy, right? We've had so many spoilers. I mean, every day you wake up, it's like Christmas, right? With Tales of Aria spoilers. I think my favorite day was yesterday. So just for reference for when this goes up, that was the Guardian cards going up. That was our spoiler going up. So Oldhim has just been spoiled or previewed, so we know what the second hero is, our Guardian hero is. We got to show Endless Winter, which is such a cool card and is an Oldhim specialization. I actually think the way it worked out, funnily enough, is that our spoiler for Oldhim was the first card to go up that mentioned Oldhim. I mean, people, I think from the lore and from the articles we'd seen in the art, we knew that it looked like pretty confident that it was going to be a Guardian, and Oldhim was maybe who it was going to be. But yeah, we got to I guess confirm Oldhim, and then we saw the hero go up from Tellurian Community College go up just in the last few hours. So yeah, I mean, Guardian has definitely got me pretty hyped up. But I guess in terms of some of the cards that have stood out, I mean, his hero ability stands out to me. We're just seeing a lot of cards that are really going to slow down this format. We were talking before we went on, right, Brendan, just about this format and how it's changing. There's been some really cool cards. The cards were limited, actually, are probably the ones that I'm actually really keeping my eye on, because I have heard a lot of good things about this limited format. I'm really excited to play the limited format. I love limited play. It's probably my favorite format is draft. So, I mean, cards like we just saw, like Winter's Grasp. Don't worry, Brendan, we'll pop these up on the screen in some post-editing magic when it goes up. But with his Grasp, for instance, which is just like a vanilla 2-cost attack that defends for 3, but is ice. These are really cool things we're starting to see because of the fusion cards that we've seen as well. I'm excited to see what the ice, the element cards look like basically for fusion. So, yeah, what about yourself? Any kind of standout cards, maybe some more powerful cards than my commons that I like to talk about?
Yeah, so I think we had a little bit of this conversation before we hopped on today, but we're seeing a lot of cards centered around disruption, hand disruption, resource disruption, all this kind of stuff, which is funny to think about how it will impact the format. We talk a lot about this format, being dominated by a lot of decks that want to play 5-card hands and want to play really efficient decks, right? So they kind of play the resources really low to the ground, not a lot of room for error. But if we think about like kind of the one main disruption card we have, which is Command and Conquer, it's probably the best card in the format, like by far. Maybe because of its dual use against the 5-card hand decks and against the control decks, which run a lot of defense reactions. But we can see like the power of something like CNC. Obviously, removing the arsenal is a bit stronger than taxing a resource or discarding a couple cards. But these kind of effects are really, really strong, especially when we're talking about some of the top decks like Chain or Agrokatsu, which can't defend well and probably don't do very well when they have a card ripped from them or have to pay another resource to continue with their turn.
Yeah. The Monarch format and the Monarch as a set in general really, I guess, propelled Go Wide decks, right? Like, it's not like Go Wide was new to the game of Flesh and Blood, but as we know, Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising were really, base sets of the game. We had Crucible, which came out as the supplementary, and then once we got into Monarch, Go Wide just has seemed to dominate. We've all talked about what Chain has done and where it stood in the meta game. And I mean, the early signs of what is coming out from Tales of Aria is that it's very much a departure from that in so many ways, to a bit more of a sort of, I guess, go tall to go medium package that's really focused on disruption, focused on a lot of interaction between the players, which is That's fantastic. Like, it's going to really, I think it's not going to, I don't think we're going to see immediate sort of like just massive shift to the other end of the spectrum, but I think we're going to see, these now the first two sets with the talent system and the fully realized gameplay bring us back to the middle now that we have two sets. I think that when you think about it from a design perspective, it makes sense, right? Like, Monarch is one half to Tales of Aria, and you bring it back and you get somewhere in the center, and then I'm sure we'll have a supplemental set that comes out and tweaks with that a little bit, and then where do we go from there next time? Like, where does the next block go to? We're only just getting Tales, so we'll find out, but it's super exciting.
It's pretty funny because like you said that you don't think the change will be super quick. I actually think that it will be almost immediate, because I just look at Oldhim, I look at some of these cards, mostly like things of the Frost talent or Frost specialization, whatever you want to call it, and I feel almost certain that the chain deck that I'm currently playing in its current iteration would not function versus these cards and these decks. So it'd have to be changed up pretty drastically. So I think that the change will be, pretty impactful very quickly. I think that like at least the idea of what these decks are going to be trying to do is, it's clear enough. So I think a lot of people will be hopping straight onto this to try to target Chain, Katsu, and any of the other kind of 5-card hand aggro decks in the format.
Yeah, sure. And I agree that it'll have an immediate impact. I just don't think we'll immediately see the format, the classic constructor format in particular, shift immediately from this very aggressive format to immediately a slow, controlling, disruptive format. I think we will find that we'll find a middle ground, I think, pretty early on. I don't think it'll just be immediately the other way. It could be completely wrong. But I think, we saw Bravo be one of the most played heroes this season. Prism still running around. People love their auras. You get to do a little bit of, there's some really cool interactions, I think, with how the set plays into Prism. So, maybe Prism will be a bit more enjoyable to play, or I don't know.
Oh man, I hope not. Just don't want to hate on the Prism players, but I don't want to face that deck more, have to play it myself. I don't know. I think we complain about Prism a little too much, but for me,
you do.
That was it's definitely not my favorite class. From a design standpoint, not from like a overpowered or underpowered standpoint. I just don't like the play patterns. But yeah, it's really interesting. Also, of course, we have the Ranger. We just jumped straight to Oldhim, and we kind of didn't mention Lexi. So I think that Lexi looks awesome. Yeah. There's something that I speculated on, or at least we speculated on as a group, was like, what would the equipment piece be that would allow for the arsenal? Would it be Ranger agnostic and allow for 2 arsenals? It would obviously affect Azalea as well. That was kind of the side that I was on, and then it'd be like, no, it'll just be Lexi, or it'll be this, or maybe it'll be a chest. We thought it might be a chest, so you wouldn't be, because Tunic looks extremely good in these decks. With the bows, the utilization with both Voltaire and Shiver is quite good. So to see it on a hood, kind of, I think it's appropriate, especially if it's Ranger, if it's just kind of Ranger generic, right? Because Azalea with Skullbone Crosswrap and a New Horizon-esque effect would be a little powerful, probably.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not sure. Like, I was kind of convinced that we were going to see it as a chest, and we were still going to see Skullbone Crosswrap, because so far none of the, I guess, legendaries that have come out have immediately made you not play the kind of that core legendary for that that class. So whether it be like Teutonic Plating for Guardian, or even if you look at Warrior, so Braveforge Braces, or for Brute, Scabskin Leathers, like those have still been parts of what that class in Monarch was doing. Whereas this comes out and it's like here's just an alternative headpiece. So yeah, super interesting, but it makes sense with the design aspect of card manipulation, and probably from a power standpoint. I think as we start to see some of these cards, I think it probably makes sense. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
It's a lot of Ranger cards that are going to be getting a lot better. Their stocks are kind of be raising. I know the first one that I thought of was, of course, like Poison the Tips, with this double arsenal, with kind of Lexi's ability of having go again almost on demand. Seems quite good. And I'm also very excited to kind of further explore and bend the design space around 3 of a Kind, because I think that card is extremely powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, and like 3 of a Kind, obviously, right? Like that's the one that's probably had a lot of hype. People are buying out 3 of a Kinds on websites, and it's a card that we did a discussion on some cards a few weeks ago where we sort of said some of the cards that we felt had like upside or we wanted to see in the future, and like 3 of a Kind was one of those cards. I'm actually have to go back, and we also talked about, did I talk about Come to Fight in that as well? Well, I think my work well.
Yeah, we talked about Poison the Tips as well. I think maybe. I don't know. Okay. Maybe we were like having like retroactive, like,
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Someone's going to go
We're
back
actually
and
talking
immediately watch
about
this and be like, no. Well, it was because we talked about a lot of cards before the video, actually. We had like quite a longer list of cards that we were discussing kind of offhand about things that we liked and we thought would go places, but we sort of had to narrow it down. So we might have to bring out our long list of cards that we feel might have some impact. I wanted to talk, Brendan, about amulets. Amulets are cards that we first saw the Earth Amulet because it got spoiled probably before its time, but we've now seen the Amulet of Ice and the Amulet of Lightning, and I'm super excited for these cards. I think they have very powerful effects. So Amulet of Ice, if you haven't seen it, is a 0 cost, 0 defense. Pitches for blue. It's an ice action item. It says go again, instant destroy Amulet of Ice. Target hero discards a card unless they pay 2 resources. Activate this ability only if you've ice fused this turn. These cards, I think, are predominantly limited cards, but have me very excited for how the limited format is going to play in particular. You've got these effects that have, these are basically almost like combat tricks, especially with the Amulet of Lightning one, which is the same thing, but it says a target action card gains go again. So you can do that during reaction step, give it go again, and then when you get to your chain link resolution, the effect will happen, you get go again. So these amulets are basically kind of our first look at like onboard tricks, onboard basically buffs that you can use, combat tricks, so to speak. So yeah, I'm really excited by these. The fact they are quite balanced as well, the 0 defense, but they also pitch, so you can pitch them for late. You can set them up early to just get them to play. They have natural go again. I don't know, something about these has just got me really excited for like the limited format and how these cards are going to interact. I feel like they're going to be very good cards in the limited format.
What makes you think that they won't have such an impact on constructed? Just kind of because they're items, because they block for nothing, or because these effects seem very powerful.
They do. So they could, because they are ice, lightning, earth cards. Like they do work with fuse, which is really interesting. So they could. I just think that they're probably not quite powerful enough for. I mean, maybe I could see the Amulet of Lightning actually being abused somehow in certain decks. Like you set it up early and then late game you just have this. It's like having a timestamp potion, right? Like, yeah. Like for setting up these kind of combo turns. Amulet of Ice, I'm not sure. Like maybe it is like a really good disruption card for these decks that want to be dumping their whole hand and like still trying to play low, like you said, for low to the ground sort of resource decks. So maybe this could be a card, but the timing on Amulet of Ice and there's just gonna be some really huge plays with this card where you watch your opponent cycle their deck, they come back to like a really powerful hand, and then you just throw this at them to disrupt their 4 or 5 card hand. There's going to be some
blast them.
Yeah,
it'd be really devastating to be playing something like Chain. And assuming you're getting past like Shackle 3, Shackle 4.
Yeah.
On those like kind of mid game shackles, just popping up 2 of these would be pretty bad. Then again, blocks are 0, which is probably, it's not generally not where you want to be when you're playing against Chain, but like a lot of this stuff it looks crazy. Like we have this like pseudo tax, like pseudo prison kind of deck sort of forming, and it's really exciting. But hey, I want to ask you a question. I'm gonna ask you a hard question, pretty unfair question. Early in Sports League. So I, as well as a lot of other people, I'm gonna be playing the world premiere here in a week. So 1 week from now, world premiere in Vegas. What tips would you give me? What should I have at the forefront of my mind going into this, this premiere limited event?
Just ask the easy question. Why not? I think if you're looking at it from a SEAL perspective, the first thing that immediately just I think shows up for me in terms of the key considerations for playing limited in this format is going to be, your ratios of your element cards. So versus your entwine cards, feels like it's going to be very important. You could just build your 30 card deck, and you could just be like, I'm just going to draw the perfect combination of my element cards and my fuse cards. I'm just going to play these really strong turns where I get all my fuse effects and sure. But then what you're going to end up is you're going to have all these probably element cards on the bottom of your deck because you've been pitching them or revealing to them, or you're going to have turns where you just have no fuse cards. So I think one of the really important things is to look at your ratios of your element cards to your fuse cards, and also just thinking about how you set up your late game scenarios, how you pitch these. So, if I pitch an element card to pay for something, do I then want to pitch a fuse card to pay for something? Like how am I setting up the bottom of my deck with my element versus fuse cards to ensure that even into the second cycle of my deck, I'm able to construct these really strong, fuse turns. Sometimes it might be correct to not play this fuse card now because it's just going to be better later in the game. I don't have an element card right now, or maybe I sit in an arsenal and wait till I draw the element card next turn, or whatever it might be. So I think that's going to be like a key consideration. I think you're going to have to consider your cost structure against these ice heroes. They're going to come for your resources. They're going to come for your cards in hand. There's probably a thing of, having maybe you're siding in like an extra blue or two in those matchups. Some cards that have a bit of utility because they can pitch well, or they can just be played as maybe a solid card. So yeah, that's probably the first two things that jump to my mind about how to do this, about the limited format in particular. But I think as we start to see more cards come out, we'll see this happen. I will say that like the element like attack actions that we've seen so far seem really powerful. You either have the ones that are just vanilla, so like a 3 for 7 at red or a 2 for 6 at red, that they defend for 3 as well, or you have these ones that defend for 2, same cost structure, so but they have on-hit effects. So like there's I think it's called Ice Fang, Frost Fang, which is like a 2 cost 5 attack for red, and if it hits a hero, they discard a card unless they pay 2. Like those cards are really exciting to me. I think on-hit effects are going to be, obviously very powerful in this limited format. You're seeing a lot of them come through on cards, but those kind of cards are going to be the ones that you need to balance against your fuse cards and against your 3 defense cards, because this is a cost. This is a 2 defense. So if you load your deck with a lot of these, and your opponent can pivot turn, swing tempo, and then you have a bunch of 2 blocks in your hand, that's going to really cost you. So yeah, probably the main consideration so far.
What's funny is that so we have like Oldhim, who we haven't seen his token weapon, kind of like one-hander, or quite yet. We've seen the buckler, which is just a little block on the shield,
and the majestic.
So and the majestic. So I'm thinking like in terms of limited, like it looks like a potentially like very grindy hero. So if you think about another format where one hero had a weapon and one, a couple didn't. We had. You think about like his Oldhim pile, like potentially a thing. Grindy weapon, defensive capabilities, maybe a lot of block for 3s. But then you got to remember, Shiver's got dominate, so it's pretty interesting that this, kind of this probably key weapon for the Ranger is going to have dominate almost on demand, which is, I don't know, it's going to be an interesting format. We've seen dominate. Being able to have dominate on a lot of attacks, like in something like Welcome to Wraith, be extremely good. Then we've also seen being able to have a weapon when other heroes don't be very good as well, and something like Arcane Rising, being able to grind them out. Obviously, we haven't seen the third hero yet, but Hayden, give me your thoughts on that, and if you don't have any, give me your speculation on what the third hero is.
I definitely have thoughts on it, because it's something that we've talked about around limited for quite a while. We talked about it in we had our episode of the podcast got this week, and we talked about limited. We talked about making that change to limited, and one of the key things that I wanted to stress was that playing more than a 30 card deck, you need a really good reason to do so. And if it's these like perceived pile decks, I think in Arcane Rising this made some amount of sense, because the power level of the set was lower than something like Monarch. It was harder to construct end games in that set, I think, just because you didn't have much room for error with your power cards. And sealed anyway, draft was a bit of a different story. And then with Monarch, though, I think this was basically close to impossible if players had played and had sort of got their reps in and things like that. So to fatigue out decks other than maybe Chain, and if the player really had set their deck up well, was also really difficult to do that, because the set was powerful. You could set up these turns, right, where you have inevitability. It's the same with Bolton. You set up this inevitability of your soul and this really strong like 20 damage turn or whatever. And so I don't think it's going to be any different in Tales of Aria. The power level of the set already looks very strong. And if you're building a 30 card deck and you're trying to go over, you're going to be putting cards into your deck that block 2 to be able to do this. There's just not going to be enough block 3s, defend 3s that you can get access to. You might end up being able to play like 32, 33, 34 cards maybe. But do you need to be doing that? Like, you need to have a way to win the game at the end of the day. And if it's just straight fatigue with Oldhim, like because of the effects he has of like making people discard and making him do this, if his weapon ends up being like pretty reasonable, that could be a legitimate strategy. But I think I wouldn't just say that it's going to be the default to go to of like, oh yeah, this you just like play Oldhim pile and fatigue people out. We've seen the power of what like Lexi can do. You can see, like you say, dominate. You can set up these end games. We don't even know what the third hero is yet. I'm sure they'll have maybe some form of evasion or some form of being able to like set up powerful in game states. So my feeling is it's probably not going to be a thing.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the next hero. I'm gonna go ahead and give my
you give some speculation. You do some work.
Yeah. So, bro, I'm putting you on the spotlight, making you a celebrity here, making you movie star.
I just work out, man. Come on.
But Yeah, so like I kind of wanted this last one to be a wizard. I actually don't think it is at this point. I think it's reasonable to speculate that. Well, it's probably more than reasonable to speculate that it's Earth and Lightning. So Earth and Lightning, if we're thinking wizard, could it be like a stone shaper? Kind of sounds like it could be a mech. But after all the lore and kind of background we've seen, I do think it's going to land more on like that druid or shaman scale, somewhere around there. And I'm thinking that actually it might be a ally centric hero. So a hero that kind of the core competency is to summon allies. So we had the ally mechanic come out in Monarch, and this is going to be kind of expanding on that and having a whole class that not that's not the only thing they can do, but they really center around it, right? And I think I was talking to Dante. And I think he mentioned to me that there was like 17 tokens, which I don't know if that's. I'm pretty sure that's not normal. So quite a few tokens, and that maybe seems to confirm a thing. But I'm mostly going off lore.
Sure.
It looks very druid esque, and it does seem like a kind of a logical thing to come from after seeing Ursa and Blasphemet. And I think it's really reasonable because if you're attacking allies, you can still have go again, like all this kind of stuff. So they're not completely broken. There's not like a bunch of Arclight Sentinels sitting on the board or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably Shaman is the one that looks most likely in terms of, and it fits into what you say to a degree as well. I think it's probably what we see now. I think there's an outside chance of Wizard. I think actually now, based on alphabetical, I don't think we can actually have a mech or a druid in that exact terminology. But I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think if you talk about something like that aspect of like allies, or I think that would actually fit in really nicely with what we've seen so far for the cards spoiled or the cards previewed in Tales in terms of what the Guardian does and what Lexi does as the Ranger. I think that could actually fit a complement quite nicely. You can see like Lexi has this aspect of, for instance, trying to go a little bit wide. So like 2 attacks per turn is pretty reasonable. And then Oldhim, and also just the ice in general looks to, slow that down, tax a little bit. So to see shamans that maybe have like semi-permanent cards would be really interesting to see. We've already seen some semi-permanent cards, like actually quite a reasonable amount in this format so far with the channel cards. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, we got channels, we got amulets. Yeah, the channel is what you're thinking.
Yeah, the channel cards. Yeah. So it would make sense.
Yeah, I would put it on the kind of on the books that I don't think it'd be called. I don't think it would be called a shaman because I don't think like summoning isn't really a shaman thing. I think it might actually just be called a summoner because druid is more like shape shifting and stuff, right? Shaman's more like totems. I think. I mean, I guess I'm just living in like the World of Warcraft right now, but I think it might just be called a summoner. Which would be really cool. I think people were really excited. That's something that people really like to do. I think one of the main reasons people were really excited about Prism, like obviously overcosted heralds are cool, but like what was cooler than that was like auras, right? These
undercosted, you mean?
Yeah, undercosted. Yeah. Sorry, overpowered and undercosted. But yeah, I mean the auras were really really exciting. I think people really like the idea of permanence. It's something that Flesh and Blood doesn't really have. It didn't really have for like quite a while compared to other games where you look at like some of these other games. The idea of the game is kind of to assemble like a permanent game state where you're incrementally winning throughout the game. Where Fab is a bit different. Where you kind of playing turn to turn. Obviously, in reality, there's a lot more going on than that. But we haven't really had a lot of assemble your permanents on the field and kind of win. Other than of course Dash does that. But I think people really like that. People love Dash. People love Prism. They love their their auras and all this kind of stuff. So I could really see it happening.
Yeah, me too. I think it's the design philosophy of Flesh and Blood and going back to their like core tenets of the design. I would think that they will be very very careful long term about the amount of cards that are quote unquote permanent cards. I think I would refer to these as like semi permanent cards, especially with like you saw like the channel. So channel Thundersteep, channel Lake Frigid, like these are really good examples, right? Where they have a cost each turn that accrues, and at some point there's just going to be impossible to pay that cost. So there's a lifespan on these cards, right? So just for reference, like channel Thundersteep says go again. Whenever you play an action card, you may pay 1. If you do, it gains go again. And then channel Lightning, which is the static effect at the beginning of your end phase, put a flow counter on channel Thundersteep, then destroy it unless you pay a lightning card, unless you put a lightning card from your pitch zone on the bottom of your deck for each flow counter on it. So at some point, you're not going to have enough lightning cards in your pitch to be able to pay for it, and you're going to lose this effect. Very powerful effect, by the way. But yeah, I like this kind of design of these, and allies as well. Can attack and can't be interacted with when they're attacked, things like that. So I think this is probably more in the vein of what we'll see it going forward, and items that have a a one-time use, or I guess the items we see, like the chambers and things like that in the dash side, that's actually the design of that class, I guess. So that's a little bit different. But yeah, in terms of other outside of that.
Sure. Yeah. So Hayden, you have your first. Is it your first Road to Nationals coming up this weekend?
I got one today. Yeah, I got a Road to Nationals today.
Oh, yeah. So, just tell me about that. What are you playing? From what I understand, we've talked about it, of course, but it is online. So, what are you kind of expecting? What are you playing, and what are you prepared for? And just give me like the Hayden spice, like what's going through Hayden Dale's head, the calling champion. I need to know.
It's an interesting one. So it's an online one. It's still, so the online ones are only available to players in country, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be like a whole country of players playing in this event. I don't even know if they've capped it either. So I think it could be well over 70 players of people who are willing to get online and play this today. I'm not sure, they might have actually capped it at 80 or something. But yeah, I've got 2 online events this week. Online, unfortunately, it's not the way I'd love to play it, but it is an opportunity to just play a Road to Nationals. The prizing's all random, which I think makes sense. It's the same as what they did with skirmish season for just...
Except for invites.
Except for invites. So invites are still top 4, of course, so it's still something to play for. So I'm probably going to end up playing 2 decks across the weekend. Looks like I'll play Chain today. We've got the deck. We've been working on the deck for a long time. Do want to play it at least one event. And then for the Sunday event, I'm tossing up between playing the Katsu aggro deck that we showed on our deck profile this week, or actually a Levia deck that we've had in the sort of locker that we haven't really played yet. Which actually, I think today as well, Dan Mackay is playing that event in a Road to Nationals, which is also online in New Zealand. So, like the stakes are pretty. I mean, the stakes are really low. There's no like gold foil tunic or anything up for grabs.
Gold foil tunic. Yeah, sign me up for that Road to Nationals.
The extended out rainbow foil tunic. Is there's none of these for, so yeah, probably play our deck today, and then might just have some fun tomorrow and play something else, and yeah, just enjoy the Road to National season. From like an XP perspective, I think I'm like basically qualified, because I've been playing armory events during lockdown, like 1 a week or 2 a week, which is it's being active, so I think will be enough. So yeah, probably just have fun with it, which is, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to just playing some games, and I'd love to obviously be in person and playing in the flesh and blood. But I'll take the second alternative if I can. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you're able to get your dub. I know online is kind of funky, but at least you're sort of practicing it by playing some of the armories. There is one card we didn't talk about, and I think it's like one of the most interesting cards for me. My mouse has died, so I can't scroll to it, but it is the shield for Guardian. Yeah. By the way, not Elemental Guardian, just Guardian.
Yeah. So I'll read this out if you like.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Rampart of the Ram's Head. The art is awesome. So it's an extended, like a semi-extended art sort of card, but like what we saw with Twinning Blade. I wonder if we'll only see this in first edition, and if Unlimited will just have a normal print, kind of like the Twinning Blade. Yeah, Rampart of the Ram's Head is a Guardian equipment offhand, so you can play it with a one-handed weapon. Whenever you defend with Rampart of the Ram's Head, you may pay 1. If you do, it gains +1 defense until end of turn, and it has a defense for 0. So this card is super interesting in the fact that it's not a once per turn effect. Every time the combat chain is broken, and you defend with it again, it's still going to have the defense from earlier chains, and you can now pay 1 more and give it another defense. So, I guess the quote-unquote first thing that comes up is like dash killer, right? So every time they break the chain, you just come back in with this, you pitch a blue, you're blocking for 1, 2, then 3.
It's real bad for dash. It's real bad. That matchup was freaking abysmal for Bravo.
Wasn't good. Yeah,
it was real bad. So that was one of my least favorite matchups in probably all Flesh and Blood on the Bravo side. And wow, this is quite the answer. I did not expect an answer like this. We'll get more aggressive cards in Bravo, because there was if you played a more aggressive Bravo list, you had a chance to draw pretty well and maybe race them.
Get your crush fix.
Yeah, get your crush fix, all that good stuff. It wasn't 100 to 0 in terms of percentages, but this looks like a dash retirer if Guardian is going to be in the format. This is a brutal card, because just breaking that combat chain over and over again. And then, +1, +2, +3. That's brutal. It's so good.
Yeah, it's an interesting card, actually. I wasn't expecting to see something quite at this level, because I think in this format, presumably, like this is going to work pretty well for Oldhim as well. And if you've got these elemental classes, so what we've got with elemental talents that we have with Tails, where they're presumably probably breaking the chain to play non-attack actions that either give a pump or give another debuff to the card or whatever it might be. Like these are things that are really interesting. With the Rampart, the Ram's Head, like, is this going to be really powerful against Lexi, for instance? What about the last class to see? So, yeah, not only could this retroactively be a great card for Bravo, potentially, depending on if we get a weapon, a one-handed weapon that that Bravo can use. And probably it makes sense, right? We've had a Majestic weapon that's an elemental one-handed weapon. So, actually, probably the token weapon is pretty likely to be
I think so.
Just a Guardian one-hander, because that's what we've seen with Monarch as well, where if one was elemental, then the other was if the one was talent, then the other one was talentless. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that. So yeah, Rampart, the Ram's Head for Bravo potentially going to be able to be used pretty well, and then also for Oldhim, of course.
Yeah, that's one of the craziest cards I've seen. That is some serious hate that's been printed on that card, but it shores up one of the most miserable matchups for Bravo, or probably for Oldhim as well. So I'm really excited. I know that there was like a video. I think it was Matt Rogers did like he was like
haven't seen
did
it
like a shrine. I didn't see it, but Dante told me it's like there was like the shrine with Dash, and he like brought his Dash and like put it at the tombstone or something. After this was spoiled.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think he I was when we put up our spoiler, I had to tag Guardian King Kale and our spoiler, just to let him know that we had something spicy coming. I think it must have been like Christmas for him yesterday as a Guardian player, especially when he saw that shield and was shaking his fist at all the Dash players that's taken down his Bravo over time. So
yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, Vegas, crazy to say, but that is in literally a week now.
Yeah.
I will be in Vegas with Dante's cute face in some weird hotel near the convention center in like 6 days, which is just unbelievable. Being first time meeting Dante, obviously known him extensively now, met him a lot in skirmish, and yeah, it's funky, man. I'm super excited. I think it's going to be a legendary event for Flesh and Blood, a historic event. The premiere has me the most excited. Obviously, I want to win the main event. Like, I'm taking it very seriously, but I just cannot. It's such a treat to be able to play this set at a world premiere at like a GP-esque event for the first time with like all these people witnessing it. So super excited. And I wish you could be there with us, Hayden.
Next time. I have a question for you though. How many Fableds get pulled on Friday at the world premiere?
A lot. There's surely a ton, right? Because we're assuming how many people are there. I feel like low number is like it's got to be like 300, 400, right? Like that's got to be a pretty low ball.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. The premiere.
Quite a few. Yeah, quite a few fables, I would assume. Yeah, because obviously not everybody who's going to the event will be able to make it on Friday. It's on a bit of a weird week, right? Yeah, so like in the US here, like this coming Monday is actually Labor Day.
Oh, okay.
So if you were going to go on Friday, you would be essentially having a 3-day work week, which it's fine. I don't have an issue with it, but I think that might be kind of weird for some people. So we'll see how Friday is. I'm just really happy to be able to go in on Thursday because Vegas is a weird place, man. I think that Vegas is probably the most exotic and just odd place in the whole entire universe, and it's just weird, man. It's like 110 degrees. There's all these like hotels, and they're all done up.
It is
like,
weird.
Places of the world.
Yeah.
It is really weird. It's a weird place. I'm not
yeah.
saying it's bad. It's just like it's a funky place.
Yeah.
Just out in the desert. It's funny. Luckily I have like good flights. So like the thing about Vegas is like your flights are going to be, unless you go at terrible times. So it's like for Vegas, the only way you get like decent prices on flight, or if you fly in really late on your arrival flight, and if you fly out extremely early, and then like the flight prices like literally double if you try to leave. If you try to leave on the afternoon when you're leaving, and you try to come in the morning when you come in. But luckily, because I booked with points, and I have like decent flights. But yeah, I don't know. Vegas is just such a funky place, man. I'm excited. The last time I think I was there was like for a Magic GP, which is like forever ago, and I like just played side events because I'm a filthy casual.
We might have been in the same event. What year was that?
That was the one. I think that the main event was Modern.
Oh, in 2018?
Yeah, I
2019?
think it was. Yeah,
We might have been there at the same time. That'd be
it's
pretty
well,
funny.
actually, it was limited as well, like
Yeah,
limited
yeah, yeah,
Modern
yeah,
Horizons.
yeah.
Were you
Modern
actually
Horizons
there?
2. Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I went to
Yeah.
that. I went to that. I played in the GP. Was it the modern one where they had three? The first they didn't get to round 3 until like 4 hours because the reporting software like crashed for 5 hours.
I don't know. I only played in
It
the
was on the side
limited
events.
event.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I played in the limited event and I drafted, but that's
Fair
hilarious
enough.
that you went as well.
Obviously.
It's pretty funny because it's actually like the Raiders. I might misquote this, but like the Raiders football team moved to Las Vegas, and it's like their equivalent of opening day. Like it's like their first game, something like that. So yeah, I mean Vegas is gonna be freaking crazy that weekend.
Big sports
Like
fan,
everything
Brennan.
was like, no, no, not at all. But yeah, I assume it's gonna be a madhouse because I remember we booked like forever ago when it was first announced, and like that weekend versus other weekends was just so much more expensive. So I assumed that Vegas is just gonna be freaking crazy. And I'm excited, but mostly I'm excited to play the game. Anyway, uh, yeah, active player turn 0, 1 additional turn. So it's time to
Time
round.